it's Sukie Baxter, founder of Whole Body Revolution, and today I wanted to talk about something that I get asked a lot, or that I hear people talk about a lot, and that is how to age well. So typically, as people get older, they find that they have some restrictions in their lives. Maybe their bodies get tense, they can't move like they used to, there's some pain, and there's some limitations. And so people want to know, what do they do? How do you keep your body functional? How do you keep doing the things you love to do so that you don't feel limited in your life? And I have a bit of a non-conventional answer for you. So when people are asking how do they age well, they're usually asking from a place of how do I maintain my body, as though my body were an object, right? So machines, we're familiar with machines in our lives, and machines need maintenance. You take your car in for oil changes, sometimes you have to replace parts as they wear out and break down, and we tend to think of our bodies like machines. We use that as a model, and in fact, ever since the Industrial Revolution, that has been the model that we use for ourselves. We look at ourselves as like a soft, organic machine. And that's the physical part of ourselves, and there is also this sort of mental, spiritual, emotional part of ourselves that we think of as like, that's the me that rides around in this physical body, this meat suit. But actually, it's not that simple, and it's not that divided. So your body and your mental, spiritual, emotional self are all part of your lived experience. They're all happening at the same time. They're all like the chords of music. You know, you might just hear the melody, but there's all these different instruments and all these different sounds that are happening together to create the sound that you then call a song or a melody or a harmony. And the physical part of you is no different. The physical part of you is integral to that lived experience. It's not happening separate from your mental, spiritual, and emotional activity, your experience of life. And so when we're asking, how do I age well? How do I keep this stiffness from happening in my body? The thing that I would love to suggest is not that you do certain stretches, not that you go to yoga, not that you work out or strength train. All of those things are really important. All of those things are beneficial. And I know a lot of people who do all of those things and they still struggle with what we call like aging related symptoms. Usually this just gets chalked up to getting older. I'm just getting older and things don't work like they used to. But what I would like to suggest is that apart from doing any kind of physical activity, you really work to connect with desire. And that sounds probably a little weird. Like, what does desire have to do with aging well? What does desire have to do with the stiffness in my body? Well, most of us have learned from a very young age not to follow desire. So babies, when they see something, you can watch a baby and their eyes light on something and they start moving towards it, right? They reach, like if it's a person, they're like reaching towards the person. They're inclining towards the person with their bodies, with their heads. Now, admittedly, all babies are a little different and different personalities will show up in how babies move towards things. But generally speaking, babies move towards their desire. They connect to an object, a person, a thing, a color, a sight, a sound, and they incline towards it. And then we tell them no, right? And as children, we were told no. We were told, you can't have that. You can't do that. It's not safe. Don't go there. You were told you can't have that because you weren't good today. You're not worthy. And these are often the stories of our caregivers that they're living, the wounded stories that have been handed down generation after generation. And they're well meant. People are trying to keep you safe. Your caregivers just want you to grow up and be healthy and happy and live your life. But they tend to put their limitations on us. And what happens when you're told, no, don't follow your desire? Sometimes it's smart, right? Like you don't want to run off a cliff. You have to learn safety. You do have to learn boundaries in your life. However, there's sometimes when it's real, and most of the time it's not. Most of the time we're totally safe. Most of the time we're doing just fine. And like most animals have self-preservation, and we are animals. So, most of the time we're not going to just hurtle headlong off a cliff. Like, we're pretty smart. And so we tend to focus on desire, like we get connected to desire, and then we're told no. And what happens is we go, so your desire, your heart goes want. And then your executive function goes, no, you can't have that. And whenever there's an inclination towards something, whenever there's a draw towards something that you want, your body mobilizes. This is really interesting, but your executive function in your brain, the area of your brain that controls executive function, which are like higher reasoning, decision making, all the things that are practical, rational, all the things that we consider to be like things you would learn in school, more intellectual type functions, those are hardwired with your cerebellum, which is your center of balance and coordination. Whenever there's activity in executive function, there's activity in your cerebellum. Why? Because when we have a desire or a need to either motivate ourselves towards something that we want or away from something that's going to harm us, there has to be a 3D action that carries us through the world, right? Like, you don't just sit there and go like, there's a tiger over there, I should run away. And your body doesn't do anything, right? Like, it's moving before you even know what's going on. You're already running, and you don't even remember making the decision to move your feet. Well, the same is true with desire. You have a desire and it comes up in you, and your brain goes, but I have to be responsible. I have to be good. Whatever good means, right? Good is different. It's meant different things for all of us because it depends on your family of origin, depends on your caregivers. So whatever your story of good, whatever your story of responsible, whatever your story of like, I have to, all of us have I have tos. I have to pay the bills. I got to make money. It's so interesting to listen to music and how much these themes play out in music of like, you hear songs talking about these age-old stories. There's just stories. I gotta go to work. I gotta pay the bills. I gotta pay the mortgage. Gotta live in a house, right? And we're doing all these things that we think we have to do, and we don't even know what's motivating it. We just think this is what you do. This is just what people do. But do they? And maybe it is what you need to do. Like, I'm not saying quit your job and don't pay your bills and go live in a tent somewhere. Like, I'm not saying that's necessarily what you should do tomorrow. But what I'm saying is that when you connect to your desire, you can start to see where you're being motivated in life, and then we can start to dissolve that tension. What's really going on? What story are you living? What story is coming down and putting the cap on your desire? What story is causing that tension where you're actually physically holding yourself back in life? And this is the most powerful thing, because then everything you do becomes so much more effective. If you go to yoga, if you do the stretching, if you do the workouts, you're no longer fighting against yourself. It's like taking the weights off of you so that you can fly, so that you can just float. Like, you're a helium balloon that just wants to rise up to the sky, and we've just been like tying you down. And all we do is untie you, and you don't even have to do anything. It just gets really easy. So this is super unconventional, right? Because we're told that like aging, it's all about what you eat, how much you exercise, how much you stretch, and like what you do. And I'm here to tell you that that's maybe 10% of it. Yes, it's important. You cannot sit on the couch and watch Netflix and chill and eat Chick-fil-A and Krispy Kreme day in and day out and like be healthy. That's not a reality, right? However, I would also say that when you truly connect to desire, then who among us wants that life, right? Nobody's like, really deep down, what I'd love to do, like if I won the lottery, is sit on the couch and watch Netflix. Yeah, maybe for a couple weeks because you're freaking exhausted and all you want to do right now is set everything down and like crawl under a bed and I don't even know, like crawl under a desk or something, pull the blanket up over your head and hide. Like, yeah, maybe that's your fantasy right now because you're so depleted and you need nourishment. And so yeah, maybe you can't see beyond, I would just sit down and watch freaking Netflix for 2 weeks or 2 months. Probably not 2 years. But at some point, you'll be replenished. Your batteries will actually be recharged and you will have desire to to do. It will come up in you because there is something. And probably if nothing is coming up for you, if you're like, I don't know what I would do, it's because you've been told from such a young age, or because it so does not align with the story of like whatever it is, being responsible or whatever thing that you've embodied, that you aren't even acknowledging it. It's like not even something within your realm of possibility because it doesn't align with you. It doesn't align with the identity of you. So it's in there. It is so in there. And there's so much power in listening to desire in your body, not in your head, in your body. What does your body want to move towards? Paying attention to what sensations feel expansive in your body. And one way you can start to do this is simply by putting your attention on your chest, just on the space around your heart, on the sensation of air coming into your lungs, and just see what comes up. And maybe nothing at first. Maybe nothing with words at first. Maybe nothing with words for a long time. But that's how we start to untangle and start to connect to these deeper urges that are within us. Because honestly, most people aren't really living anyway. And so when we say, I want to age well, we're not, what are we trying to do? You know, people are trying to live lives that they're trying to preserve lives that they're not really living, right? They're trying to keep the status quo, but they're not really trying to grow and expand. So if you follow your heart, it helps to dissolve that tension. Everything will be much more in alignment with you, and then you'll be able to breathe more easily. You know, how much more easily do you breathe when a situation that you're dreading leaves? You ever notice that? You ever notice how, like, when you're going through a really rough patch, or like if you have a breakup, if you go through a relationship breakup and you've been like, you knew it needed to come for like 2 years, and you didn't want to do it for whatever reason, like you were afraid or whatever the story was around that, and then like it ends and suddenly you're like, oh, I can breathe. And that's tension falling away from your body. And so when you really connect to your desire, the tension just falls away. You don't have to do 2 hours of yoga every day unless that's what you want to do, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't do it because you think it's going to fix the rift between what you want to experience, you know, the you that you're living and the desire that you have deep within you. Okay? Thank you so much for watching this. I hope that this was helpful. I hope it gave you some interesting things to think about and a slightly different perspective on embodiment and how we're living our lives and how we're aging. All right, take care. I'll see you in the next video.